gets distributed.
Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Janna Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Kunja Bihari Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Madhava Kunja Vihari. Thank you, Mapiti. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pravarkacharya Ashtotar Shri Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pravarkacharya Ashtotar Shri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakun Radhakun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Gaura Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Sri Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So today we're going to be reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th Canto, Chapter 12, Text 7. If Dravida Prabhu can please chant it.
Shochan
Sochan
Imams
Tvam
Adhikashta
Adhikashta
Dinan
Vishtya
Nigrinnan
Nigrinnan
Niranugrahosi
Niranugrahosi
Janasya
Gopasmi
Vikattamano Nashobhase Vridha Sabasu Drishtaha Shochanimang Swamadikasta Dinan. Okay, is that a long bomb? Should be, no. Swamadikasta. Try it again. Shochanimang Swamadikasta Dinan. Vishya Nigunan Nidanugrahosi. Janasya Goptasmi Vakattamano. Nashobhase Vrinda Sabhasu Drishtaha. Shochanimam Tvamadikashta Dinan. Vishya Nigrinnan Nidanugrahosi. Janasya Goptasmi Vakattamano. Nashobhase Vrinda Sabhasu Drishtaha. Shochanimam Tvamadikashta Dinan. Vishya Nigrinnan Nidanugrahosi. Janasya Goptasmi Vakattamano. Nashobhase Vrinda Sabhasu Drishtaha. Shochanimam Tvamadikashta Dinan. Vishya
Nigrinnan. Janasya Goptasmi Vitkamano. Nashobhase Vrinda Sabhasu Drishtaha. Shochanimam Tvamadikashta Dinan. Vishya Nigrinnan Nidanugrahosi. Janasya Goptasmi Vitkamano. Nashobhase Vrinda Sabhasu Drishtaha. Shochanimam Tvamadikashta Dinan. Mano Nashobhase Vrinda Sabhasu Drishtaha. Anyone from Zoom? Okay. If you could repeat after me. Shochan, lamentable. Iman, all these. Tvam, you. Adhikashta Dinan, poor persons suffering from pains because of their poverty-restricting position. Vishta, by force. Nigrinan, ceasing. Niranugraha asi, you have no mercy in your heart. Janasya, of the people in general. Gopta asmi, I am the protector, king. Vikata manaha, bragging. Nashobase, you do not look very good. Vrida sabasu, in the society of learned persons. Drishtaha, simply impudent. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. It is a fact, however, that these innocent people carrying your palanquin without payment are certainly suffering due to this injustice. Their condition is very lamentable because you have forcibly engaged them in carrying your palanquin. This proves that you are cruel and unkind, yet due to false prestige you were thinking that you were protecting the citizens. This is ludicrous. You are such a fool that you could not have been adored as a great man in an assembly of persons advanced in knowledge. Purport. King Rahugana was proud of being king, and he felt he had the right to control the citizens as he liked. But actually, he was engaging men in carrying his palanquin without payment, and therefore he was causing them trouble without reason. Nonetheless, the king was thinking that he was a protector of the citizens. Actually, the king should be the representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For this reason, he is called Naradevata, the Lord among human beings. However, when a king thinks that because he is the head of the state, he can utilize the citizens for his sense gratification, he is in error. Such an attitude is not appreciated by learned scholars. According to the Vedic principles, the king should be advised by learned sages, brahmanas, and scholars, who advise him according to the injunctions given in the Dharma Shastra. The duty of the king is to follow these instructions. Learned circles do not appreciate the king's utilizing public endeavor for his own benefit. His duty is to give protection to the citizens instead. The king should not become such a rogue that he exploits the citizens for his own benefit. It is stated in Srimad Bhagavatam that in Kali Yuga, the heads of government will be plunderers and thieves. These thieves and plunderers take the money and property of the public by force or connivance. Therefore, it is said in Srimad Bhagavatam, Raja Nirgirai Dasyu Dharma Bihi. As Kali Yuga advances, we can see that these characteristics are already visible. We can certainly imagine how deteriorated human civilization will be by the end of Kali Yuga. Indeed, there will be no longer a sane man capable of understanding God and our relationship with Him. In other words, human beings will just be like animals. At that time, in order to reform human society, Lord Krishna will come in the form of the Kalki avatar. His business will be to kill all the atheists because ultimately the real protector is Vishnu, or Krishna. The Lord incarnates and sets things in order when things are dismanaged by the so-called kings and heads of government. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Hidayadahi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata. Of course, this takes many years, but the principle is there. When the king or governmental head does not follow the proper principles, nature deals out the punishments in the forms of war, famine, and so forth. Therefore, if the governmental head is not aware of life's goals, he should not take charge of ruling the people. Actually, the supreme proprietor of everything is Lord Vishnu. He is the maintainer of everyone. The king, the father, and the guardian are simply representatives of Lord Vishnu. Empowered by him to look after the management and maintain things, it is therefore the duty of the head of the state to maintain the general populace in such a way that people will ultimately know the goal of life. Nati viduhu swartagatim hi Vishnum. Unfortunately, the foolish governmental head, and the general populace do not know that the ultimate goal of life is to understand and approach Lord Vishnu. Without this knowledge, everyone is in ignorance, and all society is crowded with cheaters and cheated. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnana Janashalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha Vansha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So today I was inspired to try a PowerPoint presentation. So I'll read the translation again. It is a fact, however, that these innocent people carrying your palanquin without payment are certainly suffering due to this injustice. Their condition is very lamentable because you have forcibly engaged them in carrying your palanquin. This proves that you are cruel and unkind. Yet due to false prestige, you were thinking that you are protecting the citizens. This is ludicrous. You are such a fool that you could not have been adored as a great man in the assembly of persons advancing knowledge. So once upon a time, there was a caregiver named Glenn. And Glenn, he was working in a retirement home. And so Glenn, he had this duty to take care of the residents. The nurses, they're considered the patient's advocate. And if the residents were not able to speak out, we speak out for them. And I was transferring this elder lady to her wheelchair, and she was pretty heavy. So I needed help. And when I was trying to transfer her, this other nurse came, and I asked her, "Can you please help me?" And her reply was, "No, I am a case manager. I don't do that." She slammed the door, and I was left with this lady. So I had to carry her and to her wheelchair, transfer her. And this was due to pride. She was thinking that she was the case manager. She was the boss for everyone. And at that time, I told myself, if I ever get a position in a leadership or management, I hope I will never be like this person. Next. So I like this picture. There's a story. There were two twins. They lived in the same household. They had the same parents, and they grew up together, but they were completely different. One ended up being in jail, and the other one was happy and living a stable life. So why? Why were their futures so different, even if they were raised in the same home? They would see the same situation at home. Next. And the reason why is because they would see their father drinking. One saw the father as someone he looked up to. And so he was thinking, I'm going to drink when I grow up. And the other son, he saw the effects of alcohol. He saw that it would cause a lot of disturbance in the home. The father would yell at the mother. The father would be in an intoxicated state. He would have bad mood swings, and his decisions were impaired, and it just led to a downward spiral. So one son wanted to become like the father, and the other son didn't want to be like the father. My spiritual master, His Holiness Badrinarayan Swami Maharaj, he told me there are 4 ways of learning. One by hearing, one by seeing, one by experience. Next up, please. And lastly, even if one hears, sees, experiences, he still does not learn. So this person here, he got caught at Walmart stealing. So even if someone were to tell him stealing is bad, this is the consequence, they don't learn. And why is that? Because a thief knows that stealing is bad. But why does he do it? And Arjuna asked Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, Ata kena prayukto yam papam charati purushaha. And it translates as, O descendant of Vrishni, by what is one impelled to sinful acts, even unwilling, as if engaged by force? Next, Tapas. And so Krishna, he says, Kama esha krodha esha rajo guna samudbhavaha. Krishna says, it is lust only, Arjuna, which is born of contact with the material modes of passion and later transformed into wrath, and which is the all-devouring sinful enemy of the world. At Balboa Park, I asked this couple, if you could give me some words of wisdom, what would it be? Next up. And this young man, he said, don't smoke cigarettes. So I asked him why. Well, why would you suggest this? So he started giving reasons. It's bad for your lungs, your clothes, and your body. Starts to smell, premature wrinkling, aging. It causes cancer and so on. And so if anyone watching this, please stop smoking cigarettes. And you can see in the picture, it's very bad, but why are people doing it? It's all due to lust. And I like the picture on the left. The guy says, mind if I smoke? And then the lady, she says, care if I die? Secondhand smoking. This condition is very lamentable because you have forcibly engaged them in carrying your palanquin. Next up, please. See, most of us, we tend to give the remote control of our life to somebody else. Someone presses a button and we start crying. Someone presses another button and we start laughing. Someone presses another button, we are happy. And somebody else presses a button and you become sad. We should not give the remote control of our life to somebody else, especially if they do not know what is in our best interest. When we force somebody to do something, it creates a very hostile atmosphere, and the person will most likely retaliate or rebel. But when we approach the person with kindness, understanding, and if we simply ask, the chance of them carrying out the request is much better. Next up, please. And so this is a picture of some Navy people here. In Coronado, where I was working, there was a very difficult resident. He wouldn't listen to anybody. When we asked him it's time to get up, it's time for breakfast, he would start yelling, he would throw things. So, and he was a captain in the Navy. He was in a very high position, but he also had Alzheimer's. So he had the conditioning of giving orders and not receiving or being told what to do. And all the staff members, they would try all kinds of strategies, tricks, and different ways to wake him up. And to get him to the dining room would be a big hassle. And sometimes we would ask him to go out into the patio and to have a walk and to get some fresh air, and he wouldn't do it. He was basically impossible. He was not happy when someone told him what to do. And so I remember him talking to himself, and he mentioned this word, admiral. An admiral is a commander of a fleet or naval squadron or a naval officer of a very high rank. He's higher than a captain. So I decided to try something new. And I told him, Captain, the admiral is on his way. We should get ready. Next up. And so he immediately jumped up from his bed. So this word admiral had a very significant meaning in his life. He jumped up from his covers and he took his cane and he rushed to the closet. He got ready. And he wasn't messing around. He was telling me, young man, give me that, give me that. So I was helping him. So when I learned this art of getting him to do something, we would simply say, Captain, the admiral wants you to finish your breakfast, and he would do it like it was an order. This proves that you are cruel and unkind, yet due to false prestige, you are thinking that you're protecting the citizens. This is ludicrous. You are such a fool that you could not have been adored as a great man in an assembly of persons advanced in knowledge. And so this is when Jadabara chastises King Rahugana. And talks between friends go nowhere. Friends can talk for hours about their feelings and plans, but it will not change. So we need a higher authority. Next up, please. And so an example is like a rocking chair. It gives you something to do, but it gets you nowhere. And next up. So this is when Lord Krishna chastises Arjuna. And so when we have questions or doubts about life, we should approach someone who is authentic, someone who is from an authorized source. My Guru Maharaj, he would say questions are a sign of intelligence. or asking questions mean that the brain is working. And we will certainly have questions about material life and what to speak of spiritual life. So we can't do it on our own. Next, Tapas. And there's a picture of Sanatana Goswami when he met Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He inquired submissively, and that's the proper mood. He started asking relevant questions. Who am I? Why are the threefold miseries always giving me trouble? And finally, please tell me how I can be relieved from this material entanglement. I do not know how to question you about advancement in spiritual life, but I beg you kindly, mercifully, let me know everything I should know. So this is a proper mood. We should not ask questions towards our senior Vaishnavas with a challenging spirit. Next, Tapas. And an example is someone who has performed severe austerity or tapasya in the Himalayas in a cave. He may be doing austerity for 20, 30, 50 years, and when he comes out, he writes a book on his experience. And the public, they might be attracted to read such books. Oh, he has performed such severe austerity. I want to know what his realizations are. But the devotees, they know that if he's not connected to the four paramparas, the Brahma Sampradaya, the Shri Sampradaya, Rudra Sampradaya, and Kumara Sampradaya, we are not interested. Why? Because Srila Prabhupada has mentioned many times in his books that we human beings, we have four defects. Our senses are imperfect, we're prone to be illusioned, we make mistakes, and we have a tendency to cheat. Just like our eyes, I like the example that the devotees use. If you look up at the sun or the moon, it looks like a very small circle, but it's actually a huge planet. So even our eyes are imperfect. Next, Tapas. Like a machine, a big machine that has a flaw, it will also produce flaws. And we may not see it with our material vision, but there will be flaws. King Rahugana was proud of being king, and he felt that he had the right to control the citizens as he liked. Next, Tapas. And so Srila Prabhupada, he calls this material identification. And this leads to pride, and then when pride increases, there will be a fall down. An example that Prabhupada uses is the Brahmanas of this age. Unnecessarily, they became proud and wanted to dominate over the other classes, and gradually they degraded in qualities. Qualities determine what varnashram you belong to, not by birth, and a Vaishnava is beyond the social and spiritual orders. Next topic. So these four classes, the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras, they're also parts and parcels. They're in the same position. The Brahmanas are considered to be the head, the Kshatriyas are the arms, the Vaishyas are the torso, and the Shudras are the legs. Next topic. But comparatively, the head is most important. But when there's competition that I'm the most important, you are nothing, then in this way we forget to serve the whole, and that becomes the cause of our fall down. A healthy society cannot function nicely without the intelligence. It says that the king is actually the representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. An example of a great king is Yudhishthira Maharaj. Next. The reason for the Battle of Kurukshetra is to enthrone Yudhishthira Maharaj as king. Krishna wanted Yudhishthira Maharaj to be the emperor of the whole world because he was a devotee. He knew how to lead the people to the ultimate goal of life. And Srila Prabhupada says, the king's business or the president's business is to see that the citizens who have mistakenly come to this material world to enjoy sense gratification, they should be trained up in such a way that they can go back home, back to Godhead. That is king's responsibility. Similarly, that is the father's responsibility and the guru, the spiritual master's responsibility. Such an attitude is not appreciated by learned scholars. According to Vedic principles, the king should be advised by learned sages, brahmanas, and scholars who advise him according to the injunctions given in the Dharma Shastra. Next. So we can see here that even in Vedic times, the Kshatriyas, they were not independent. They needed to take the advice of the Brahmanas or learned persons before proceeding with the plan. And the Brahmanas, they would give advice to the Kshatriyas, and the Kshatriyas would administer. Next. Huh? Oh, I'm sorry. Next topic. So yeah, Krishna created these four classes here, and you can see them. One is either a worker, one's a businessman or a trader, one likes to protect citizens or administration, and then one is a priest or a learned person in Vedic culture. Next topic. In the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, when Duryodhana was describing the soldiers of his army to his teacher Dronacharya, Duryodhana says, Anyecha bhavaha shura mad arte tyaktva vijitaha. There are many other heroes who are prepared to lay down their lives for my sake. See, and this is an example of someone with a demoniac mentality. He does not care for the lives of his own men. He just wanted victory by any means necessary. And being cruel to others, this is a quality of cruelty. He said, all these people are willing to die for my sake, Duryodhana. And so we're glad that he wasn't the emperor. He took pleasure in hurting physically, verbally, and that was his pleasure. Next topic. So there was once a king from the Arabian countries, and he visited London. He saw the place where people would be executed, capital punishment. And those who were giving him the tour, he asked, can I see how you execute them? And they said, there is none. At this time, there is no one to be executed. And this king said, take one of my men and execute him. He is giving one of his guard, one of his associate, because he wanted to see it. And this is an example of small-mindedness. Next topic. And also in the Ramayana, there's another example of Ravana. He had millions of soldiers. He had no consideration, but he was willing to wake up his own brother, Kumbhakarna. And Kumbhakarna was cursed. He couldn't wake up untimely. And if he did wake up, that would be the time that he would wake up, and there was no alarm. But Ravana, he forced his brother to get up, knowing very well that if he was woken up untimely, his death was assured. Death was guaranteed. So he sent him to fight Lord Ramachandra. Next, Abbas. And this is a picture of Kumbhakarna. Before he went to fight Lord Ram, he approached his brother and said, my dear brother, I will be going now to fight for you, but I know my death is guaranteed. So he knew. And if your brother's telling you, I'm going to die, you should stop him. You should tell him, don't go. A considerate teacher or parent would give warning to the student, be careful, there's danger here. But Ravana, he still sent his brother to die. It is stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam that in Kali Yuga, the heads of government will be plunderers and thieves. These thieves and plunderers take the money and property of the public by force or convince. And what is the difference between a thief and a plunderer? Next. Srila Prabhupada says that a thief, he steals unknowingly, whereas a plunderer, he'll actually take you by the feet and he'll try to shake you and get as much money from you as you can. So this is an example of society now. All these people are working very hard. They went to school, but you know, the government, they're taxing them so much and they're so much in debt. Next topic. And Prabhupada, he also says that these thieves can be in the disguise of family members. When a devotee is asking for a donation, these people will say, I don't have money, or maybe next time, not right now. But when the wife asks for hundreds of money, he would give right away. Or sometimes an unwanted relative stops by and asks for money, the person will give, even if he knows that this person will only use the money for something wrong or against his well-being. The debt that some students have after graduating from universities, they are being robbed. And Maharaj, he would say, the modern educational system teaches one how to be a work unit. Srila Prabhupada would compare the poor students to be like dogs seeking for service door to door. This is the employment now in Kali Yuga. The nature that someone has is different from that of their occupation. Someone who has the qualities of a Vaishya or Shudra is working, being forced to solve elaborate equations. And someone who has a nature of a Brahmin is working at Starbucks or McDonald's. Next tapas. So therefore they're unhappy. When I go on book distribution, I ask people, what do you do? And they're just not happy. They don't like what they're doing. So almost all of the people who are working are frustrated, and their life becomes a hard struggle. They hate waking up, and they can't wait for Friday to start, the weekends. And those who do graduate from universities, they can't find a job. And when they have to go back to school, and the debt just keeps piling up. I have a friend, she graduated as an English major. She went to Japan to teach, but she couldn't find a job. So she had to go back to school again. And in the purport, it says, we can certainly imagine how deteriorated human civilization will be at the end of the Kali Yuga. Indeed, there will no longer be a sane man capable of understanding God and our relationship with him. In other words, human beings will just be like animals. Next. So right here. Srila Prabhupada would often mention polished two-legged animals. Animals, they do not care to understand their relationship with God. And most people that I meet on book distribution, when I tell them about reincarnation and karma, they would want to be dogs. Dogs. They want to be dogs in their next life because they see that a dog is hanging out of the window of a car with his tongue out. They think they have a life. But when you actually put in proper perspective, the dog is always on a leash, and he can't go out of the house until the owners come out. So it's a very misconception that people have. When the king or governmental head does not follow the proper principles, nature deals out the punishments in the forms of war, famine, and so forth. Therefore, if the governmental head is not aware of life's goal, he should not take charge of ruling the people. And this instruction should be given to the leaders of the world. The very first book that I read from Srila Prabhupada was The Science of Self-Realization. So, and I read that about 7 years ago, and I can still remember the first sentence in the first chapter. It says, at present, human society is being misled by leaders who are blind, for they do not know the aim and objective of human life, which is self-realization and the reestablishment of our lost relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Once I read this sentence, I knew that this book is telling me the truth, and I couldn't put it down. Whenever I came to the temple, I would get a new book to read and leave a donation. So without this proper knowledge, everyone is in ignorance, and all society is crowded with cheaters and cheated. In book distribution, I was at Balboa Park, and there were these magicians. Next topic. And these magicians, there's a thing called sleight of hand. And the crowds, they would be very easily attracted by these magicians. You know, they're looking for entertainment, and especially those that have kids. As soon as they see a magic trick, they automatically come to the magician. And at the end of the performances, he would ask the kids if they had money, and then he would ask them to put it in his hat. So these cheaters, the people also, they're thinking that, wow, I'm a very nice charitable person because they have paid something for their entertainment, but actually they've been cheated. How is these magic tricks going to help you to become a better person? How will giving in charity benefit you and spiritually to someone who will end up buying alcohol or beer with it. Next topic. And so, if we want to live in a world that is full of life, full of growth, and full of kindness, we should introduce others to Srila Prabhupada's teachings. And ultimately, everyone is looking for a best friend. Next topic. And that person is Krishna. They're looking for someone to share their secrets with, someone who is excited to see them as much as they want to see the other person, and someone who will never leave their side. And yeah, we should have trust in Krishna. He's our eternal friend. Is there another one, Thomas? Okay, that's it. Thank you for your time and attention. All glory to Prabhupada.
No questions today?
No. Did you have something, Vijay Krishna?
Yes, I have a question. May I?
Yes, please.
Prabhu, related to one of the pictures with a man in a suit and tie pointing to himself with his two index fingers from the two hands and using a crown, a golden crown.
Mm-hmm.
And related to this picture, you talked about pride comes before a fall.
Yes.
So my question is, why is it that pride comes before a fall? That is my question.
Okay. So pride is very dangerous. It stops our growth, or you can say wanting to learn more. Everyone that, is very prideful, they think they know everything. And when someone thinks they know everything, Krishna will humbly make them think otherwise. So yeah, pride leads to a downfall, because when pride stands in the way of proper learning, and that's it.
Yes, Prabhu, outstanding answer to my question. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for always joining Vijay Krishna Prabhu.
You're welcome, Prabhu.
Anyone else? Okay. Thank you very much. All glories to Prabhupada.